and jump in. So we got some exciting stuff. We are actively working on our upcoming release. So I know we've been saying this, probably kind of beating a dead horse at this point. Pietro is awesomely called out that he brings up. We have, let's see, I think it was January since the latest released for Gravity. So we are actively working getting that set up as soon as possible and released and in your hands. So coming soon to your computer / to itch. And then, of course, we'll eventually be on the different store in the future, probably looking at Epic Games, then eventually Steam. And so that is incoming. And this will come with a lot of good fixes too. And so, pardon our delay on this. We want to get that out to you, but we don't want to ship something that's just kind of mediocre. So, incoming there. And so that'll be, we're actually doing sort of the release process today. Oh, okay, Gordo.
Hey, sorry, my audio completely froze there.
All good. So we're starting on the release process. Actually, started yesterday. We just want to release on like at a late hour in either time zone, and so this will make it a lot easier, just in case we have any fires. And we're also testing with, excuse me, we're also testing with some of the larger spaces that have been created, and we just want to make sure that hey, we push an upgrade, and then we don't suddenly destroy the space in the game that you're creating. So we want to make sure that this is a smooth rollout, and then we'll get on to more of a consistent release schedule in the future. So really excited to see what you think, and appreciate the constant nudges for us to get this release out. Gordon, anything you want to touch on regarding the upcoming release?
No, just really excited to finally get it out after it being like 80 odd days. So, um, yeah, it'll be amazing to see more people on the platform and hopefully get more games on there too.
Yep. Good stuff. Cool. So that is coming soon. And on a quick note regarding, actually not regarding the side of the release, is we sent out an email last night regarding investment. There's a very good startup accelerator that is actually accepting applications now, and they do potentially 750K investments for early stage games. And so if you didn't get this email, let me pull this up for you real quick. So this is definitely something to take a look at. Let me open this in a new tab real quick. If you are interested in making a game, making a project, they invest at this intersection of tech and gaming. This is Andreessen Horowitz. They're one of the most renowned investors in the world. So definitely do take a look at that if you have any interest, because they even, from one of their quotes, they invest where with really brand new companies that are just getting off the ground. That's what they can help most, and they'll say that ideally, your co-founding team in a general sense of the idea, but besides that, you don't need to have a product built. And so we, as both building our gaming community and the gaming industry at large, would always mention these awesome opportunities that crop up. And they also mentioned us on a recent blog post, which is very kind of them. You'll notice us in the top left of their game engine market map. We're between and this was a plot of the open source side and owning the publishing destination. The Mirror is really the only one doing this, and which is an awesome thing. That's part of why we started this. We're like, whoa, wait a sec, no one is doing this? Like, let's do this. This is awesome. And so here we are today. So if you're interested in that, check out our email. I can post this link in the chat too. And the applications do close Sunday night. So check that out. And the reason we mentioned this, which you might be wondering, is we'd be very honored if you submit an application to build a game in the Mirror. I have seen posts about them investing in games that are built on platforms such as Roblox, UEFN, and so if you mention the Mirror, that'll really help us out, get some more validation as far as people using our platform. So just wanted to call that out too. If you have any questions, happy to chat more about it as well.
I think Pietro wanted to know more about that chart and what things were on it, because he said he could only see two things on the chart.
Oh, thank you. So let me pull it up. So the chart over here, let's see. So it's a split between the top side is owning the publishing destination. The bottom of the y-axis is publishing agnostic. So that'd be owning the publishing destination would be Roblox, for example. So you can see one other than Mirror. Oh, Potter Labs, the other one. So they're on the list. They're not anime focused. And so I think this chart might be slightly out of date. Excuse me, they're anime focused, but they're not built on open source, from my understanding. So I think the chart might be kind of out of date. Zaz says, didn't Dreams die like 2 years ago? Dreams still exists. It's just it's not. I believe they removed the multiplayer services, which was pretty sad. The Dreams built a fantastic engine. We should have done more with it. Yeah, Dreams is cool. That's part of our inspiration as well. We want to get towards like what Dreams was able to do. And while you're typing there, the x-axis then is just simply open source versus closed source. So in the publish agnostic side, we have ones like, of course, Godot is a great example. And Bevy, totally open source, and you can publish it to Steam, anywhere else. But there's not like one unified platform where you publish it. And so we fall into that category of the one unified platform. Technically, we could also be in the bottom quadrant, though, bottom left, because we allow you to publish on Steam if you use the open source repo, Epic Games, wherever you wish. So we cover half this graph, actually.
I think there is a distinction here that makes it much more sensible to put it on top, because the platform is geared towards the publishing destination. The fact that you can bring it elsewhere is like a bonus feature of it being open source, that we're not controlling you. You could do what you want, but it's not what like the primary goal is.
Yep, totally agree.
And
It'll be very nice to get back to feature work. Like now that we're through all the CI stuff and all the build mania, it'll be nice to get back to features.
Yeah, that'll be good. And Zaz and Pietro, while you're here, any feedback on features that you'd like to see tackled first once we ship this new release? Most happy to chat about those. Equipables has been a big one up there. We want to make sure that you can add that, edit an asset, for example, edit the fire rate of a gun, VR world building. That's also similar, actually, on the equipable side, because you have a gun that can shoot, and now you have a gun that can scale an object. It could change the size, it could change the transform, the position, rotation. Kind of Gary's mod playing tools is definitely something we are interested in. Assuming that's what you're referring to as far as the VR world building side. Pietro said VR feels like a perfect thing for building games because you work in 3D to make 3D. Totally agree. And we have a good few fans of VR on our team and people we work with. We'd love to do more in that area.
the release of the Apple Vision Pro has been a disaster in terms of it not selling well because it's way too expensive. But it has driven people's attention back into VR and AR and actually having it be like a useful thing for productivity. People have built like in-home like little AR controls and been using the Apple Vision Pro as like a tool to like preview 3D models and such. So that is, I think, maybe reinvigorating the market and getting people interested in that kind of technology again.
Yeah, very much so.
We also have a provisional port to the Meta Quest natively, and it runs quite well as far as we could see. So maybe that's worth spending some time on too.
I recall hearing recently that Godot just had a partnership with Google where they increased the Android performance by 10%. So that probably will help out as well with the Quest.
Oh yeah, that'd be lovely.
Yeah, that'll be
I was really shocked, like the menu performance and stuff on the Quest is actually really decent. Like, you know how you get like some stutters on Windows and Mac when you're booting the app? The Quest doesn't have that, which is kind of weird.
And on the topic of upstream improvements, The reason that I'm here today is because a user asked about upgrading the engine, and I want to chat about what's the best timeline for that. I assume we should wait until the upcoming release is done, and then we can rebase the Mirror's engine fork on top of the latest upstream changes.
So actually, some good news on that front. So before we were open source, it was a pain in the neck to do this. You are welcome to do an engine upgrade at any point you want because we've changed all the CI so that it's no longer silly. Now, when you build the CI, you can say, "Hey, give me version 543," and that'll apply to that Mirror Godot app version. So every time, if you want to update the engine or you've like, "Oh, there's a small fix," just go ahead. There's no danger to it anymore. Before it was really risky because it would just, everything on the dev branch of the CI would get ingested and then it would get built and then it would break something. Versus if you don't update the submodule until you're ready and you know it works, it's fine. So yeah, go ahead, like no risk anymore. Before it was a pain in the neck to do, no longer a pain in the neck. Just go ahead.
Sure that it's not dangerous anymore. It is still good
Yeah.
to coordinate that in terms of like updating the app to use the new engine at the same time,
Yeah.
because like that's a part of updating the fork of the engine to make sure that it still works with the app, because the app is very complex.
Yeah.
And subtle changes can break things, but yeah, that's good to know that it's not dangerous anymore. So, um, given
Yeah.
like I think that things have stabilized recently and that there will be release of the mirror soon, I think I will do that upgrade sometime within the next week, and then the fork of the mirror will have an extra 2 months of upstream commits.
That'd be amazing. Thank you so much.
Sweet.
Like,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, we've been really hoping for the engine update because we had a lot of Linux issues this time around. A lot of Linux crashes that were just not there last release. Tracing them down is incredibly difficult as well. We seem to mostly have a handle on it, but we had to update the GCC version and the glibc version for right now. We can't debug it any deeper than we currently have with the tools we have because we can't reproduce the crash on other Linux machines, just on the servers themselves. Anyway, that's a topic for another time, but we've
Upstream
mostly
Godot
resolved.
actually just bumped the GCC version to GCC 9 2 days ago.
Really, we just bumped to 11. I suspect we're using some features from 11 or higher in Jolt, if that makes sense. It's not very old, so it doesn't have like a lot of. I'm assuming that that's the case at least. But yeah, we had some weird crashes related to glibc when taking a seat. So yeah, it was weird. I can show you later.
Yeah.
And the other question I had about upgrading the engine is I saw that, Goran, you have a pull request for adding CMake changes for Jolt on Android. And I know it's not working yet, but I'm thinking it might be worth it to just integrate that PR, even though it's not working fully yet. I'll probably just squash it into like the commit that's adding in Jolt. And
Oh
then
yeah,
if other people want
yeah.
to
If it
build upon
makes
that, they can.
Yeah, if it makes Android builds, it's fine. It'll only support the Quest right now because it doesn't say, "Hey, am I, an x86 platform or x64 Android?" It only handles the Quest ARM64 architecture. So yeah, it's fine. It might need a little cleanup because it was made very quickly to prototype whether we could get Quest support working, and it seemed to be fine. So yeah, go ahead. Feel
That's
free to absorb it.
actually, I would imagine that X64 would be not too difficult if we already have
Oh,
everything else
honestly,
working.
it's really easy. It's just I literally didn't have a device to test it on. That was all. That was the only reason I didn't do it. Because I was like, okay, I'm going to specifically target the Quest, get the app deployed on there, and succeeded with just that code. But I think to test like other platforms, I'd need to like check with the emulator whether the app launches, and the emulator's a bit hairy. But yeah, just adding the like x64, x86 instructions there should be more than enough. and you should at least see it builds on CI. And I would assume that if it builds on CI, it will work. The architecture changes aren't as scary as they used to be, in terms of Android at least. And Android's really good. I didn't appreciate this while I was working on it. Android is amazing at handling the different architectures. Like it does it in a really clever way. I didn't know this initially, but it actually gives you the libraries in different versions straight from the SDK with a single command, which is what the script I used does. So it makes it a lot easier to like link and with different architectures. So changing it out is just like saying, "Hey, I'm running x64. All right, cool. I'm giving you those libraries now," and you don't have to change much of your build commands to do that, which is really nice. Usually, it's like shooting yourself in the foot while trying to duct tape something. That's the best description of build systems I can give.
I like the analogy. That's awesome.
All right. Well, that all sounds good, and that is all I wanted to discuss today. So I will let the rest of the meeting proceed.
Oh, this is great. Well, one thing, Aaron, I know you still develop on Mac primarily, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken. How's the stability been as far as crashes and whatnot with the latest engine?
So I haven't opened up the mirror in a while. So I haven't tested it much, but
I was thinking Godot in general.
Godot in general, like I don't really experience the kind of crashes that we have with the mirror in small projects in Godot. Like the smaller projects seem to work fine. They're not triggering whatever engine issue is caused by having a big project. So like when I work on smaller projects, I do not notice the same crash issues.
Gotcha. Okay, good to know. Yeah, go ahead, Gordon.
I have a quick question actually. On the Mac front, when you're doing the engine upgrade, can you throw in the metal PR? Because it's
there's a metal
disabled by
PR.
default. Yeah, there is. If you could you throw it in, and I can just like add it to the CI later on. Because if it's just sitting there idle, it shouldn't cause us any problems. But it means I can play with it to see if we can get metal working fully later.
That is actually very much worth a try because like the crashes in the mirror on Mac were mostly like either with rendering or threading, and if we could just swap out the renderer, I mean that could be worse or it could be better. So it's definitely worth having both, having that commit integrated so we have more options and maybe it'll help out.
Yeah, we have a direct line to the guy who made the PR as well. Like I was speaking with him, and he told me to just try it out and let him know of any problems. I did try it already and had some crashes, but I suspect they would actually be fairly simple to solve, just from some small edits to the engine. Yeah, because we still have some crashes on bigger spaces, which are kind of annoying. I'd really like to get them fixed.
I just took a look at the PR. It was last pushed 5 days ago and last comment 4 hours ago. So it is a very actively updated PR. So that should be pretty easy to bring in.
Heck yeah.
Assuming it doesn't conflict with anything else, but I don't think any other PR we have is touching the rendering system.
Nope. And you need to enable a flag for it to compile with it. I think it's like metal_enabled or something.
Yeah, metal equals yes.
Yeah, so if that's off, then that's okay, because I can just enable it later.
Right. I'll still do like a thing to make sure that it does compile, but like we don't. I'll leave it to you to enable it on the CI.
That'd be great.
I don't like committing anything if it doesn't compile.
Golden heck rule. Yeah. It should compile 100% of the time.
Cool. That'll be great. Good to explore. Thank you. Yeah, and on the crash side too, Aaron, as we've been digging more into the code, yeah, we found some good optimizations. I think that'll help as well. Gordon's been really digging deep there, so yeah, our goal is to get much more stability on this as far as the crashes. But this will be good to have the metal upgraded or metal side for Mac. Yeah, I'd love to develop on a Mac more.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't touched it since before Metal existed. But if we have Metal support, do we have iOS support?
Not automatically. You'd also need to make sure that like Jolt and stuff will work on iOS.
Okay, so we'd have to compile Jolt. That shouldn't be too bad. Famous last words. Um, yeah. Okay. Cool.
Also, you should consider that Apple doesn't like uh, shipping like stores inside of their store, and so they would probably see the mirror as that. So even if we got the mirror running on iOS, it would probably be rejected from Apple's App Store, and you'd have to release it on alternative App Store only in like Europe or whatever, where they are forced to allow those.
Yeah, that would suck. I
Well,
guess we could just, as long as it's not integrated directly in the app, they wouldn't know.
we could do it if we used in-app purchases, but then we'd have to mark up everything a lot just to pay Apple's 30%.
Yeah, it's not. I think it's more than just the purchases though. They don't like distributing like general purpose content,
Mm. Yeah,
especially if it's like a development platform. Uh,
Yeah, I
they
suppose that we could just say we're Roblox and keep arguing that point. We're like Roblox. We're like Roblox, and Roblox is on here, so let us on.
yeah.
so
Although, yeah, you're right.
Pietro,
Apple could be.
on
Yeah, they could be.
on the topic of is Apple worth it? The way I see it is that Mac is an awesome platform that's worth it, but unfortunately doesn't have much market share. And iOS is a sucky platform, but it does have a lot of market share. So both both of Apple's platforms have different reasons that it's worth trying to support them.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely worth expanding if we can.
But just on a personal note, if you're considering buying an iPad, don't.
Yeah, my girlfriend actually did. I didn't.
Not a fan?
I'm not a fan of any lockdown platform. It's the same reason I wouldn't use Roblox.
Mm.
The same reason I would choose a Mac over an iPad is the same reason I would choose the Mirror over Roblox.
That's
Nice.
fair.
Nice. Makes sense. Cool. Good stuff to think about.
But as for Android, Android is actually an open platform. You could even install Android on a desktop computer, or you could use like Samsung Dex or whatever to turn an Android phone into a computer, and you can plug in a keyboard and stuff. And the full fat Godot editor is even supported on Android. Uh, so yeah, Android is actually cool because Google. It's really just something Google didn't do. They didn't lock it down, and that means that it's awesome.
Hmm. That's good. Cool. All right. Good stuff on the platform side. So, one other thing to mention, let's bring this back to the release side a little bit, is we looked at our Discover tab, and right now there's actually two tabs of both build and play on the production version. And we're going to merge this into one tab for Discover, just so there's like, if you want to play stuff, if you want to build, you just go to Discover, and that's your spot. Because build versus play, like the historical reason there was inspired by Second Life initially, where we want this like collaborative, very easy to collaborate type of environment. And in Second Life, they did everything in real time. Like you hop on a piece of land, on an island, and boom, you're like building and playing together. So we want that same effect, but as far as where we might do something more closer to that in the future, but where we currently are today, if like everything is open by default to join, then we get a lot of just like very kind of not polished spaces, and that doesn't really help anyone. So this PR over here on the left, 149, this automatically sets everything to private by default, and so the spaces are not open. You'll need to do that if you want to invite collaborators. That's super easy. And so this will clean up your Discover feed a good bit because we want stuff that's actually been worked on to show up in your feed. So this will feel like more of a significant change. So just FYI that this is coming up. So yeah, quick mention there. And always open to feedback on this if you hate it, if you like it. And Gordon mentioned one other thing that'd be good to call out: refactoring the space object code. It's high priority for us, and this has been on our roadmap for a little bit. Just to reiterate real quick, it's our space object refactor, which is issue number 38. And some more details here, but space object, or just object, but we just denote it as space object in the code. It's pretty heavy. We want to refactor it so it's A, a lot simpler, and then B, so you as a developer can use any node coming from Godot. Theoretically, that's the ideal long-term goal. But this will much more complete or build a path towards the bidirectionality side. So you can start in Godot and end in the mirror, or start in the mirror and end in Godot. So FYI, that'll be priority for us in addition to these other features we're talking about once we get the release out. And Pitcher asks, could it be possible to load themes from a local disk for the app UI? I don't see why not, but still probably won't do local disk. I mean, we can offer that just like as we offer both storage options, cloud or local, depending on what you want, but we would want that to be able to be used anywhere. So we'd put that in the just kind of default storage path. So that would be cloud or local. So you're talking about just for your local build mode, not like the experience that a player would see? Yeah, there's a part of it where it's like if we're gonna make the ability to change parts of the UI, instead of just doing it for one thing like your local UI, we might as well generalize it so that you can use it for games, because that's also on our roadmap is, hey, yeah, more modifiable UI. We have a simple table class that, excuse me, it's not, well, there's some good work that it got into it, but as far as like the actual pieces that are exposed on build mode, not much is there, and we want to do a lot more with the UI in the future. So the UI of the main menu, discover.
Oh, so you mean like recoloring the UI? So if you want it to be like pink and then have like your own picture in the background. Ah, like yeah, okay. Because Gary's mod had this feature where you could change out all the assets and like the colors for the whole game. So when you were playing like prop hunt, it would change the UI to prop hunt, and then you would have like a prop hunt guy in your loading bar spinning around, things like that. It was cute. It was actually quite a cool feature. But maybe the image example's a bit extreme, but you might just mean recoloring. Maybe just a setting in the options menu would be a good place to start, just where you can set like the colors for the panels, because it's part of the theme as far as I know.
Yeah, my general recommendation is if you want to edit stuff just locally, then I'd recommend the open source code, just because you can always make those changes as you wish yourself. Cool. Okay, good to know. I haven't heard of Revolt Chat, but I'll take a look. Awesome. Well, anything else that we should cover? And side note, we might change this name from Weekly Planning to something more like Mirror Weekly, or what's going on in the mirror, because it's quickly transitioned, well, rightly so, from like, yeah, we don't want to always be talking about just code the whole time, because it's been a really good, this has been a good medium, just like talk about, hey, what's going on? What stuff is upcoming, even on just like, not open source code level, like upcoming features and things like that. So more to come there, just FYI. Open to ideas for the name.
Yeah, it's like planning and upcoming and misc. It's really just like the mirror news for the week.
The mirror news. That's good. That's good. Sure, just turn on the TV, turn on the Mirror News, Mirror Weekly, Mirror Podcast, Mirrorcast. I like kind of straightforward names, like the tutorial series. Make Games in the Mirror is the name I chose for it. It's great for getting noticed on YouTube too, so we'll take it. Oh, more tutorials are coming there too. That's another quick update, but it's not up yet, so it'll be up. Yep.
This is a low priority, but one thing that would be cool to have eventually is streamable audio. So imagine like importing a 3D model of like a loudspeaker or something, and then that loudspeaker plays like the meeting audio like from Discord into the mirror, into the
fun.
space.
Oh, I like that. If we embed Chrome too, I feel like that'd be pretty easy because then we could just do that in Chrome. Play the live stream.
Yeah.
There's a streamed audio player if I remember correctly, and we can use the lovely WebRTC work that the boys did for the people. Sorry, no, I shouldn't say boy, but the people did for the voice chat as well. I feel like that would be a good way to do the streaming because I think they figured out a lot of the voice stuff, and we kind of get a 2-for-1 deal if we maintain that a little because we get audio and voice chat in one. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the buffer that we use for audio there would actually be better being a different type of buffer where it's for music rather than for low latency voice. Because you would probably be better like polyfilling like sections of the audio file in that case because you can deterministically say, hey, the next minute is music, so we can just load the next minute versus the voice chat, which is like load the next 64th of a second. Something like that. I don't know. Maybe Opus isn't a good fit for that. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I think all of them would be good, but I think that Godot has an audio streaming capability, like from a plugin or something that we could just eat. I shouldn't say eat, but you know what I mean.
Eat, yeah.
This is what happens when I don't have breakfast. I start eating APIs instead of consuming them.
And by the way, this is something that I did like a few months ago. In the mirrors fork of Godot, I added in support for the GLTF audio stuff. So if you can actually set up like a loudspeaker that has like audio emission metadata on it, and you can either like supply like an audio file in there, like if you want to just play like an MP3, or we can have something else in the mirror that will override like the source of the audio and like give it something else to play, but the file itself can still like give you information about like how loud is it and like if it's like conical audio or like what direction is it playing in, how far away can it be heard, stuff like that.
Nice. Yeah, thanks for your work there on the GLTF side. That
Yep.
sounds awesome.
And if anybody wants to make an asset for the mirror that has that audio data in it, you can do it either by building the mirror's fork of Godot or using a precompiled mirror's fork of Godot or building MyPR upstream, and that allows you to set up an audio stream player node in the Godot editor, and then you can export that as an audio file. In the future, we'll have like a more focused SDK, but for these early stages, it's a little bit more just simple, like using Godot as the SDK, and then you can further refine things in the mirror.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. Well, I think we've covered all the major stuff. This has flown by really quickly. Good discussion, and yeah, appreciate all the thoughts and the contributions here. Angela mentioned importing assets, Blender, and such from Godot, from Blender or from Godot. Yes, that is very much planned. We're excited for that. That'll be it's a pretty important thing that we are also prioritizing soon. TM.
I was thinking about that. Maybe we should just have a little tab in the users panel, and if you make a folder somewhere in your documents, it'll just auto import that file multiple times over the same ID. So when you're saving out the asset in Blender or whatever, you don't have to go into the app import. You just drop it in the sync directory, whatever we'll call it, like mirror sync or something, and that'll keep a persistent ID for that file. And when if you're an artist, that means that your workflow is just I save the file. Cool, it's in the game already and already replaced in the space because your client is connected. Something like that.
I like that idea. So instead of having like a button in Blender for upload to the mirror, you would just in the mirror say like, hey, I want this .blend file, and it would like listen for changes in the file system. So every time you press Control S in Blender, it would like the mirror would go through the import process and like a few seconds after you pressed Control S, you would see that object in the mirror.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It'd be clean because a lot of these workflows are kind of stupid because they all rely on like, oh, I have to save to this file and check 20 boxes. It's like, but I've done this 50 times already.
Yeah.
Versus we could just click save.
Right.
Yeah.
It's my philosophy. If it seems like it should be that simple, make it that simple.
Yeah, simplicity is
We
great.
should hunt down all the other formats that aren't GLTF and get rid of them all, and then that's our problem solved.
That's good.
When I was at GDC, I actually talked to somebody from Unity about this, about how horrible the workflow is with FBX and Unity packages, and how much nicer it would be if we had like GLBs everywhere. And that person was like convinced by what I was saying to them, so that was great. The only problem though is that that person they mentioned at the end of the conversation that their time at Unity was ending like in the next week. Like they were just about to be laid off.
I think like 60% of the workforce is like, or more, is like being laid off. It's ridiculous.
60?
It's really high. Like
Wow.
engineering workforce. I should say engineering workforce. Because they if you look at how much they've shrunk over the last 10 years, because what they've been doing is using interns for a year, and then the interns do all the work, and then the interns leave because they're not getting paid. And then they keep recycling this. This is what they were doing before the big scandal. And they've been downsizing their workforce, like their permanent workforce, continually, because it hasn't really affected how much code they can produce, but it isn't a good strategy because it meant that there were so many parts of the code that are unmaintained by like a sole person. So the care and duty of care around those areas was really problematic. Versus Godot or any other engine where you have some guy who knows the networking code and is like, actually, you guys can't do this change because you're wasting your time because I did this last year. They don't have the benefit of foresight. But yeah, anyway, Unity keeps downsizing. I suspect that they're going to keep having management issues because they're not hiring and focusing on their engineering stuff. They're focusing on hiring managers, and when a business gets into that phase, they're already doomed to failure. Like, ostensibly, if you measure that, you can see, oh, okay, see you in like 6 months when you've laid off another 20% of your workforces. It's always very common for me. When you see an IPO or a stock get involved, it can kind of tank you.
Interesting.
But I don't know. It depends. If you're a good company and gamers support you, you'll be fine regardless of that. But in the case of Unity, no, not so much.
Good to think about.
Yeah, like I think that stocks are fine provided you IPOs are fine provided you don't have the whole Unity problem where you're closed source and when something goes wrong, the users can't take control a little bit, and that's why I really like the mirror. We can't ever annoy the users by saying, oh, we're going to do something that's going to upset you, but they'll just be like, ha, you can't upset us, we have the source code. So it's kind of like, it's a nice in the UK we have the expression tit for tat, which means like in French comme ci comme ça, half and half. So it's like equal balance of power. So it's kind of good with the mirror.
Yeah, very interesting. Bring it back to the asset side a little bit. Pietro had a good question. Sorry. I was talking about this. No, you're good. I was talking about this with one of our partners as well. If you upload essentially asset versioning, open to thoughts here, because right now our assets are just like you have one file, one asset. Would asset versioning make sense? Because I think you just upload a new file and that overwrites and automatically swaps in the new asset with the same ID. Could be kind of problematic, but there's ways around it.
I have a theory that this actually makes a lot of sense. I think we should be like a bit like Git. Our asset ID should be like the root object that's spawned in the space. But then under that object, there should be a list of the GLTFs that have been ever uploaded in that format. So if I add a light and I sync that from Blender or whatever, and I click save, it should save the hash into the asset, but keep the old version. And the space should use the old version. And we should have a shortcut button in the space that says, hey, you've updated this asset. Do you want to update all? Yes, sure. And then we have a checkbox that says always update all. this means that from like the UX perspective, you have a Git history of your asset, and if someone comes in and uploads a cake over your beautiful car by mistake, you can just go and delete that revision or just undo the change. It also means that changes like asset changes could be Control Z'd.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, like it's not hard to do. It's just like we just had a files list with a hash next to it for the actual file hash, and if the file's the same, it'll never change. The other nice thing about that is we get the asset hashes in the client, which can be used for optimizations.
I like this.
We'd need like some other fields under each file, probably like collision shapes and stuff, because we want to pre-generate those. But that's not an issue. Yeah, we need to do the undo system. It is definitely a thing in my brain, so that's why I suggest that.
The undo system is like the bane of our existence.
I'm gonna nuke it and make it into Git.
I feel bad that we kind of like had undo like pretty early on in the mirror, but it like was never like comprehensive and wasn't perfect, and we just kind of like hobbled along, tried to patch it, and it was like never in a good comprehensive state. It was always half functional, and even though we put so much time into it.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that if you hook it up the way it's hooked up, it'll never work properly. Like it needs to be like there needs to be one history for everything. So like imagine like a line with points on it. If I press Control Z, I should be able to rebuild the entire space from running those actions in the linear order again. And because we can't do that from our undo history, it means that the undo history is designed poorly. A lot of apps suffer from this, so like don't feel bad. Like there are a lot of apps with complex interactions that can't do this very well, and it's because of the number of places that you need to undo. Obviously, sorry, I'm stating the obvious, just saying it for the users. But I believe we can do it. Like if we added a basic history, like hey, change asset, and all of the commands for the API go through there, like command pattern, like command spawn asset. That command using command pattern means that it can be recorded in the log and then replayed, and then your space could even be reconstituted from that command pattern. That sounds like a stupid programming way of describing it, but basically it's just a list of all the commands that have run on the space. So if I had a scripting block, it goes through there. The caveat to this design is that you'd need to like listen for these commands in different places, and you'd need to unify everything to use these commands. But Godot has a history system, but it very much can suffer from a similar issue that we're getting in the game. The history is built into the context that you're currently in. So if you're in the scripting editor, you hit Control Z, it'll undo the history for there. But what I'm more talking about is you should be able to revert like back 10 changes safely and it happen in the right order. Versus what happens now is you could press Control Z in the wrong context and break everything, and then not be able to redo it very easily. So yeah, it's hairy. Like we need both local history for like the scripting, but we still need a global history for the space. Right now, reverting isn't very convenient. And it needs to know what to do. Like, if that object's moved because of physics, we need to make a decision. Does that object get reverted to its last position that you transformed it to, or does it keep its physics position? Things like that. They need to be explicit decisions rather than things that just happen, like, automatically because we haven't defined the behavior. Sorry, I'm just ranting about undo, but
Also
I
worth
really
mentioning
want to make
undo.
it like...
Also worth mentioning, undo in general is just kind of hard. Godot recently, like in the past few months, has had this infuriating problem where if you're in the script editor and you type some text and then you press Control Z, it doesn't undo the text you typed. It undoes like something else in like the scene tree, and that's so annoying. Like
I had that too.
No cigar.
That annoyed me a few days ago.
No cigar.
Blender undos. Oh, good. It's all apps. Thank goodness. It's not just us that has
Yeah.
bad undo. Blender, Godot.
First thing I
every
do in
product I've ever
Blender
used.
is go into the settings and change the undo limit from 32 to 256. Because I always like, if I ever use Blender and I make something and I want to go back and undo, and then I find that like I've reached the end of the undos and I can't go back any further, that makes me sad.
It's annoying. Yeah, I think we can fix it with some trickery if we just have like, a list of all the changes somewhere in a collection and just undo based on that. And we can always replay that history, so we could even like merge it into the snapshot stuff that we have, perhaps, to make them the same thing, because they should be the same thing. There's no point in duplicating that behavior, which will reduce the code down as well. When we did the refactor, maybe I should add like a way of recording everything that happens to a space object just as a starting point. So if it's interacted with, etc., and it causes the state to change, we record that event that happens. But I guess the problem with that is it's going to become very long in the history. Like, it could become massive in terms of the data. Like, if you move an object 100 times, storing that 100 times, 100 vector threes, that could get quite large that's just one object. You move an entire scene, 1,000 objects moving 100 times, it's going to get massive.
Zaz, what do you mean by selection in the workflow history?
Oh, sorry.
I'm just looking at the chat here.
That's like when you select something like in Blender and then you press Control Z, it will undo the selection. And they're asking for the same feature to be in the mirror.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that makes sense. So I was thinking like selecting just a piece of the history and undoing a certain selection of it.
Yeah. This is like the selection is in the history.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I've done that a good few times. I'm just like, where did my selection go? Totally with you. All right. This is really good. But yes, Pietro, I think we do need to work on the release. Really good chat. Appreciate you all hopping on. Good discussion as always. And we're always open to feedback on all of this for ways we can improve, things we should focus on aside from the release and features and all that. Definitely feel free to voice your feedback, message us anything publicly on the Discord channels, or message me directly, whatever you wish. Tweet it at us, zeet at us. But cool. Sounds good. And we'll get that release out. Then we'll send out an email too whenever that's up. And yeah, excited to see what you think.
Pietro, I'll ping you in the general chat when it's out. I'll make sure to specifically thank you for pushing us to get a release out.
Yep. You can be in the.
I'm gonna merge you in my MC.
Be in the change log
Minecraft.
in the release notes.
Don't worry, you can kill us in Minecraft. We need to make I can't say the word Minecraft if I say this. We need to make a homage to Minecraft in our game.
Yeah, Mirrorcraft.
Mirror Block Land. Terrible programmer name.
Maybe in the future we can re-add voxels. Maybe when it's less buggy.
That'd be really fun.
That'd be cool, actually.
There's so many cool features we can add. We're making progress. And then, yeah, make a Mirrorcraft. We can build castles and shoot each other with arrows.
The only limit is our imagination and also our time.
That too. Awesome.
So, Garden, one last thought about the undo thing. I didn't get around to fixing this when I made the scripting for the mirror, but like I did notice that like the shortcuts like Control Z, Control V, weren't working in like the script editor, and because something else was like eating the inputs, and I didn't like figure out what that was, but like that's an annoying thing you could look into when you're changing that system.
Yeah, I think all the inputs for Control Z and Control Y should just be absorbed in one place. So if we detect that in any other piece of code, then it shouldn't be doing that, like as a rule. I think all of our inputs should work that way, like so that we're not like eating them somewhere else, if that makes sense. Control Z, I guess, could just be handled by having a empty UI element that's over everything that doesn't block the mouse, and then if it detects Control Z, it won't pass, or Control Y. Then we can, plumb in the undo redo to like a single place, like an interface that can then go to the context that you're in. So if you've got the scripting editor open, the context is scripting, you press Control Z, it'll undo then. Yeah, but I can look at that definitely, 100%. That shouldn't be hard. It's just a matter of removing code and just putting it in one place and then saying, "Oh, this is silly," and then just reducing the functions down to like one instead of having like it in 50 places. Pietro, release accountability manager. I like this. What does he do? He comes to our house, he beats us over the head with a stick, and then we get the release out, and approved.
Good stuff. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate y'all hopping on. Good discussion. And we'll see you next week. Or in the mirror with the latest release for Horizon. Coming soon.
Or both.
Or both. All right. Bye, everyone. See ya.